If you're planting tomatoes straight down into the ground, you're doing what most American gardeners have been taught, and what traditional Amish growers have avoided for generations. In Holmes County, Ohio, the largest Amish community in America, farmers lay every tomato plant sideways in a shallow trench. Their grandfathers did it. Their great-grandfathers did it. And by August, their tomato plants are heavy with fruit, while modern gardens struggle. It's a method that costs nothing. It uses no chemical fertilizer. And done right, it can triple your harvest. In the next 14 minutes, you'll learn all 6 steps and the 3 mistakes that can ruin the whole method if you skip them. Here's something most gardeners never learn, and it changes everything about how you should plant a tomato. Tomato plants are different from almost every other vegetable in your garden. If you bury part of a pepper stem in soil, it rots. If you bury part of a cucumber stem, it rots. But if you bury part of a tomato stem, something remarkable happens. That stem grows new roots. This is the secret behind the Amish method. When you plant a tomato, the way most Americans do, straight down into the ground, you get one root ball at the bottom of the hole. That's it, one root system pulling water and nutrients from one small spot of soil. But when you lay that same tomato sideways in a shallow trench, every inch of buried stem becomes a new root zone. You don't get one root ball, you get a long, branching root system running the entire length of the buried stem. More roots mean more water, more nutrients, a stronger plant, and more fruit. The Amish didn't learn this from a science book. They learned it from watching their grandfathers, who learned from theirs. And they refined it into a 6-step method, one of which most gardeners get wrong, no matter how careful they are. Let's walk through it. Step 1. Choosing the right seedling. The first step happens before you ever touch the soil. It's choosing the right seedling. The Amish look for tomato seedlings that are tall, between 12 and 24 inches. They actually prefer plants that look a little leggy, a little stretched. Most American gardeners see a tall, thin seedling and think it's weak. The Amish see opportunity. Here's why. A tall stem means more length to bury. More length to bury means more root development. A short, stocky seedling can be planted sideways too. But the Amish know the bigger gains come from the taller plants most people would throw away. The only rule is that the stem should still be flexible. If it's woody and stiff, it's too old. Soft and green is what you want. Step 2. Removing the lower leaves. Step 2 looks small. Skip it, and your tomato might never recover. Take your seedling and remove every leaf that will end up buried under the soil. Pinch them off gently with your fingers. Don't pull, don't twist. Leave only the top 4 to 6 leaves attached. This step matters because buried leaves rot, and rotting leaves underground invite fungal disease into the exact spot where your new roots are trying to grow. The Amish learned this the hard way, and they never skip it. Step 3. Digging a shallow trench. This is where most modern gardeners go wrong. They dig too deep. Most gardening books, most garden centers, and many YouTube tutorials tell you to dig a deep hole for your tomato. The Amish don't. They dig a shallow trench, only 4 to 6 inches deep, never more. And the length of the trench matches the length of the stem they're about to bury. Why so shallow? Because the upper layer of soil, the top 6 inches, is the warmest, most alive part of your garden. It warms 5 to 15 degrees faster in spring than the soil below it. It holds more oxygen. It contains more of the beneficial microbes that help young roots establish. When you bury a tomato stem deep, you're sending it down into cold, dense, oxygen-poor soil. When you bury it shallow, you're laying it into the warmest, richest layer of your entire garden. The roots respond by exploding outward, and they do it fast. This is the single biggest reason the Amish method works. And it's the single thing most gardeners get backwards. Step 4. Laying the plant and pointing it east. Here's a detail the Amish know that most gardening books leave out. The direction matters. When you lay your tomato seedling into the trench, point the top of the plant toward the east, the direction the sun rises. The buried stem and roots will stay where you put them, but the leafy top, the 4 to 6 leaves you left at the end, will do something remarkable on its own. Within 2 to 3 days, that leafy top will curve upward toward the sun, all by itself. You don't bend it, you don't tie it, you don't stake it. The plant straightens itself naturally. By the end of the first week, you'd never know the tomato was planted sideways. The top stands tall, the way any tomato plant should. But underneath, hidden from view, the magic is already happening. Every inch of buried stem is sprouting new roots. Step 5. Covering the stem and watering deeply. Now the moment of truth. Covering the stem. Take the soil you dug out of the trench and gently cover the stem. Pat it down lightly with your hands. Do not press hard. Do not pack the soil tight. The new roots that are about to form need oxygen to grow, and packed soil suffocates them before they can start. Once the stem is covered, water the area deeply. Not a sprinkle. A long, slow soaking that pulls the loose soil down against the buried stem. This contact between soil and stem is what triggers the new roots to form. Without that initial deep watering, the stem dries out and the whole method fails. From here on, water consistently for the first 2 weeks. The buried stem cannot survive a drought during root development. Wet, but not flooded. Damp, but not dry. The Amish check their newly planted tomatoes every single morning for the first 10 days. Step 6. Marking the buried stem. And here's the step nobody on YouTube teaches you. It's the difference between a great harvest and a ruined one in August. After you've covered the stem and watered it in, take 2 small sticks. Push one into the ground at each end of the buried trench. These are your markers. They show you exactly where the underground stem is running, invisible beneath the surface. 2 months from now, your tomato plant will be 3 feet tall. You'll need to drive a stake or set a cage to support it. And every gardener who doesn't mark the trench drives that stake straight down through the buried stem, cutting it in half, cutting off every new root that grew from it, ruining the entire plant. Traditional growers rarely lose a tomato to this mistake, because they always know where the stem is hiding. Once your markers are in, you're done with planting. 6 steps, 20 minutes of work. A method that can outperform a deep-planted tomato in the right conditions as long as you understand the science behind it. So why does this method actually triple the harvest? Compared to gardeners who plant deep into cold, hard soil, which is most American gardens in early spring, the Amish sideways method can produce 2 to 3 times more fruit. It comes down to 3 things happening underground that you cannot see. The first thing is root mass. A tomato planted straight down develops 1 root ball at the bottom of the hole. That's 1 cluster of roots pulling water and nutrients from 1 small spot of soil. A tomato planted sideways develops roots along the entire length of the buried stem. Not 1 cluster. A long, branching network. 2 to 3 times the surface area for absorbing water. 2 to 3 times the surface area for pulling in nutrients. The plant above ground looks the same, but underneath, it's a completely different machine. The second thing is temperature. The top 6 inches of your garden can be 5 to 15 degrees warmer than the soil 1 foot below it in spring. Warm roots grow fast. Cold roots sit still. A tomato planted shallow can start growing roots within 48 hours. A tomato planted deep into cold soil can sit there for 2 or 3 weeks, waiting for the ground to warm. That same shallow root zone can become a problem in very hot climates, and we'll come back to this in a moment. The third thing is stem strength. A tomato plant with roots running along its buried stem is anchored differently than a tomato with 1 root ball. When August comes and the plant is loaded with fruit, sometimes 30, 40, 50 tomatoes hanging from its branches, that weight has to be supported. A deep-planted tomato with 1 root ball at the bottom often leans, sometimes snaps at the soil line, sometimes tips over, completely under the load. An Amish-planted tomato with roots along its entire buried stem stays standing. It can carry more fruit without breaking. It can support heavier harvests without falling apart. So you get more roots, pulling more water and nutrients. You get faster root development because the soil is warmer. And you get a stronger plant that can hold more fruit without collapsing. Those are the 3 reasons the Amish method can produce 2 to 3 times what a standard deep-planted tomato produces. But all of this only works if you avoid 3 specific mistakes. Get any one of them wrong, and the method backfires completely. These aren't beginner mistakes. Even experienced gardeners make them. And once you make them, there's no way to fix the plant later. You have to start over. Mistake 1. The shallow, root drying mistake. The Amish trench works because the roots sit close to the warm topsoil. But that same shallow root zone dries out 3 times faster than deep roots. And most gardeners don't realize it until the plant collapses in July. When you plant the Amish way, your roots sit in the top 4 to 6 inches of soil, the exact layer that dries out first under summer heat. If you do nothing to protect that root zone, your tomato will be thriving in June and collapsing in July. Not because the method failed, because you didn't finish the job. The fix is simple. and traditional growers rarely skip it. Within 48 hours of planting, cover the entire trench area with 3 to 4 inches of mulch. Straw works, dried leaves work, grass clippings work. What matters is that you put a thick blanket between the sun and your shallow root zone. One important detail: keep the mulch a few inches away from the stem itself. Mulch touching the stem traps moisture against the plant and causes rot at the base. A small ring of bare soil around the stem, then a thick mulch layer extending outward over the trench. That's the pattern that works. Do this, and your shallow roots stay cool and damp all summer. Skip it, and the method works against you. Mistake 2. The fertilizer in the wrong place. Mistake. This one is so common that even Amish farmers warn beginners about it. Most gardeners are taught to feed a tomato plant at its base. Sprinkle the fertilizer around the stem. Water it in. The nutrients reach the roots. That's how it works with a deep-planted tomato, because the roots are directly below the stem. But with the Amish method, the roots are not directly below the stem. The roots are running along the entire length of the buried trench. Most of them are nowhere near where the stem comes out of the ground. When you put fertilizer at the base of the stem, you're feeding empty soil. The main root system, the long branching network you built so carefully, gets almost nothing. The Amish solution is to feed the whole trench, not the base. Mix compost or aged manure into the soil along the length of the trench before you plant. The nutrients are already in place when the roots form, reaching the entire root network instead of just the bottom of the hole. This single adjustment can double the amount of nutrition your plant actually absorbs. Same fertilizer, same amount, just placed where the roots are instead of where you think they are. Mistake 3. The invisible root zone mistake. This is why marking the trench in step 6 matters so much. Once the soil settles and the plant is growing, you can't see the buried stem anymore. You can't see the root network running along it. To your eyes, the tomato looks like any other tomato, with a single stem coming up out of the ground. And that's where the danger starts. When weeds appear around the plant, the instinct is to grab a hoe and chop them down. When the soil crusts over after rain, the instinct is to break it up with a cultivator. When you set a stake or a cage for support, the instinct is to drive it in wherever feels solid. Every one of these actions can destroy your tomato. The cage stake that goes through the buried stem cuts it in half. The hoe that catches the underground stem severs every new root growing from it. The cultivator that turns the soil over rips the root network apart. The plant above ground looks fine for a day or two. Then it wilts. Then it dies. And the gardener never understands what happened. The Amish solution is to treat the entire marked trench as the root zone, not just the spot where the stem comes out of the ground. No hoeing inside the trench. No cultivating inside the trench. Any stake or cage gets set outside the trench markers, never inside them. Weeds inside the trench area get pulled by hand, gently, with the fingers. It takes more patience, but it's the only way to protect what you spent 20 minutes building. This is why those 2 small sticks at the ends of the trench matter so much. They aren't decoration, they're a map of where your harvest is hiding. Even when you do everything right, the Amish sideways method isn't for everyone. Let me tell you when it actually backfires. I want to be honest with you. This method isn't a universal solution. There are 4 situations where deep planting is actually better than the Amish sideways method. If any of these describe your garden, this video may not be for you, and that's okay. Situation 1. Very hot, dry climates. If you garden in Phoenix, West Texas, New Mexico, or any dry desert climate, trench planting becomes risky. The warm topsoil that helps roots grow in Ohio can bake them dry in Arizona by June. In these places, deep planting is usually safer because the roots reach cooler, moister soil. The Amish method works best in the cooler farmlands where it was developed. Situation 2. Already strong, stocky seedlings. The Amish method is designed for tall, leggy seedlings that need the extra root development to compensate for their thin stems. But if you've grown your own seedlings under strong lights, and they're already short and thick, with stems the diameter of a pencil and dense foliage, you don't need the sideways method. The plant is already strong. In this case, deep planting works fine. You'll get a good harvest. Trying to lay a short, woody seedling sideways often just damages the stem. Save the Amish method for the seedlings that actually benefit from it. Situation 3. Sandy, loose soil, all the way down. If you live somewhere with deep, sandy, well-drained soil, where the ground stays loose and warm 2 feet down, deep planting can actually outperform the Amish method. the tomato roots can travel downward easily. They reach moisture and nutrients without needing the lateral spread that trench planting provides. This is rare in most American gardens, but if you have it, take advantage of it. The Amish trench method was developed in heavy clay country where deep soil is cold, dense, and hostile to roots. If your deep soil is actually friendly, your tomato may prefer to grow down into it. Situation 4. You cannot be in the garden every day. The Amish trench plant because they're in the garden every day. If you travel for work, or you can only garden on weekends, the shallow roots will dry out faster than you can rescue them. Deep planting is more forgiving. The deeper roots can survive a few missed waterings. It will not give you the spectacular harvest the Amish method can, but it will give you tomatoes. If your life is different, the method has to fit your life, not the other way around. Now, if none of these 4 situations describe your garden, the Amish method may work very well for you. Here's the question worth asking. If this method is so simple, so effective, so well tested across generations, why have most American gardeners never been taught it? The answer has nothing to do with conspiracy. It has everything to do with how the American gardening industry changed after World War II. Before the war, most American families grew their own vegetables. Knowledge passed hand to hand, garden to garden, without anyone needing to sell anything to make it work. After the war, gardening became an industry, a whole economy built around the idea that gardening required things you had to buy. The new industry didn't hide the old methods on purpose. They just stopped teaching what they couldn't sell. A free technique with no product attached has no commercial value. It cannot be packaged on a store shelf. So over time, garden centers stopped explaining it. Magazines stopped printing it. The Amish kept the method alive for one simple reason. Their communities never adopted commercial fertilizer in the first place. They never depended on garden centers. They never watched the gardening shows. The economic pressure that erased traditional methods from mainstream American gardening never reached them. So the trench planting technique stayed in their gardens, untouched, passed from grandfather to grandson, generation after generation, while the rest of the country forgot. Today, the internet is finally bringing these old methods back. Not because anyone is selling them, because once you see the results, you understand why they survived. You've just been given one of them. What you do with it is up to you. A tall seedling, a shallow trench, a stem laid sideways into warm soil, 2 sticks marking where the hidden roots will grow. That is all this method really takes. It does not replace good watering. It does not work in every climate, and it will not magically fix a weak garden overnight. But in the right soil, with mulch and steady moisture, it gives a tomato plant something most plants never get: a second chance to build a bigger root system before summer arrives. Plant 1 tomato this way this season, just 1. Mark the trench, mulch it deep, water it consistently. Then compare it in August with the tomatoes you planted the old way. When that single plant outproduces the others by 2 to 3 times, you'll understand why this method survived for generations while everything else was forgotten. If you want more lost gardening wisdom from old Amish communities, you know what to do.